What do you think is the most useless metal on Earth? Think about it. Iron builds bridges and skyscrapers. Copper conducts electricity. Aluminum makes airplanes light enough to fly. But gold? Gold is soft. You can't build with it. It tarnishes less than other metals, but it's too heavy for most practical applications. For thousands of years, it's been essentially decorative. And yet wars have been fought over it. Empires have risen and fallen because of it. Men have crossed oceans, endured starvation, and killed each other for it. Entire economies have been built on the idea that this soft yellow metal has inherent value. Why? What makes gold different from every other element on the periodic table? The answer isn't rational. It's psychological, historical, and chemical all at once. Gold has properties that made it inevitable that humans would obsess over it. And that obsession has shaped the course of civilization in ways we're still living with today. This is the story of gold. To understand why gold became the universal symbol of wealth, you need to understand what it actually is. Gold is element 79 on the periodic table. Atomic symbol Au, from the Latin aurum. It's a heavy metal, dense enough that a single cubic foot weighs over 1,200 pounds. But here's what makes it special. Gold is almost perfectly inert. Most metals react with oxygen. Iron rusts. Copper develops a green patina. Silver tarnishes black. But gold? Gold just sits there. It doesn't corrode. It doesn't oxidize. It doesn't react with almost anything. A gold coin buried for 3,000 years will emerge looking exactly the same as the day it was minted. This property is rare, incredibly rare. And it made gold perfect for one thing, storing value across time. Gold also has another unusual property. It's extremely malleable. A single ounce of gold can be hammered into a sheet 300 square feet in area. So thin you can see light through it. This made it perfect for decoration, for jewelry, for making objects that displayed wealth. But malleability also meant you couldn't build with it. You couldn't make weapons from it. A gold sword would bend in battle. A gold tool would deform with use. Gold was useless for practical purposes. And that's exactly why it became valuable. The first evidence of humans working with gold dates back to around 4,400 BC. The Varna necropolis in modern-day Bulgaria. Archaeological excavations in the 1970s uncovered graves containing over 6 kilograms of gold artifacts, bracelets, necklaces, ceremonial weapons. This wasn't functional. It was purely decorative, purely about status. By 3000 BC, the Egyptians had mastered gold working. The pharaohs covered their tombs in it. The famous death mask of Tutankhamun, discovered in 1922, is 11 kilograms of solid gold. Why? Because gold was eternal, like the pharaohs themselves claimed to be. The Egyptians developed the first standardized exchange rate for gold. 1 part gold equaled 2.5 parts silver. This ratio would persist, with variations, for thousands of years. But it was King Croesus of Lydia, around 560 BC, who changed everything. Croesus ruled a kingdom in what's now Western Turkey. He was legendarily wealthy. His name became synonymous with riches. The phrase "rich as Croesus" persists to this day. But his real innovation wasn't accumulating gold, it was standardizing it. Before Croesus, people traded using gold and silver in various forms: rings, bars, nuggets. Every transaction required weighing and assessing purity. It was inefficient. Croesus introduced the first standardized gold coinage, the Lydian stater. Each coin had a consistent weight and purity, stamped with the king's seal as a guarantee. This was revolutionary. Suddenly, gold wasn't just valuable, it was money. Portable, divisible, universally accepted. You could carry wealth across borders. You could make complex transactions. You could save. The idea spread rapidly. The Greeks adopted it. The Romans perfected it. The gold aureus became the standard currency of the Roman Empire. For centuries, gold coins were the oil that lubricated trade across 3 continents. But gold had a problem. There wasn't enough of it. Throughout ancient history, gold was scarce. It had to be mined, and mining technology was primitive. The Romans operated gold mines across their empire. Spain, Egypt, Dacia in modern-day Romania. Slaves and prisoners worked in horrific conditions, extracting gold from quartz veins deep underground. Production was limited, a few tons per year across the entire empire. This scarcity made gold valuable, but it also constrained economic growth. You can't expand an economy faster than you can mine gold if gold is your currency. Then came the discovery that changed everything. On January 24, 1848, a carpenter named James Marshall was building a sawmill for John Sutter in Coloma, California. He was inspecting the mill's tail race when something caught his eye. A shiny rock in the stream bed. He picked it up. It was heavy, yellowish, soft. He'd found gold. Marshall tried to keep it quiet. So did Sutter. They knew what would happen if word got out. But you can't keep a gold discovery secret. By May, the news had reached San Francisco. By August, it had reached New York. By December, President James Polk confirmed it in a message to Congress. The California gold rush had begun. Within a year, over 300,000 people descended on California. They came from everywhere: the eastern United States, Latin America, Europe, China, Australia. They crossed continents and oceans for a chance at wealth. The population of San Francisco went from 1,000 in 1848 to 25,000 in 1852. Most of them found nothing. Gold mining looked easy in theory. Pan in a stream, find nuggets. But the reality was backbreaking labor for minimal returns. A few struck it rich. Most went broke. Some died. Cholera, accidents, violence. The gold rush towns were lawless. But here's what the gold rush did accomplish. It moved massive amounts of gold into circulation. California produced over $200 million worth of gold in the first 5 years. That's over $7 billion today. Suddenly, there was a flood of gold on the market. The same pattern repeated across the world. 1851, gold discovered in Australia. 1896, gold discovered in the Klondike, in Canada's Yukon Territory. Each discovery triggered a rush. Each rush produced more gold. By the late 1800s, the world was swimming in more gold than ever before. And that created a problem. If gold is money, and suddenly there's much more gold, what happens to prices? They rise, inflation. But if gold is supposed to be a stable store of value, how can it cause inflation? This tension led to one of the biggest political debates of the 19th century. Should currency be backed by gold? Or by silver? Or by both? Or by nothing at all? In the United States, this became the free silver movement. Farmers and debtors wanted silver added to the money supply. More money meant higher prices for their crops and lower real value of their debts. Bankers and creditors wanted to stay on the gold standard. They wanted stable money that held its value. The debate culminated in the 1896 presidential election. William Jennings Bryan gave his famous Cross of Gold speech. Quote, "You shall not press down upon the brow of labor this crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold." Bryan lost. The gold standard won. For a while. By the early 20th century, most major nations had adopted the gold standard. Currency could be exchanged for a fixed amount of gold. This created exchange rate stability. If $1 equaled 1/20th of an ounce of gold, and £1 sterling equaled 1/4 of an ounce of gold, then the exchange rate was fixed. $5 to the pound. Always. This system worked well during peacetime, but it had a fatal flaw. When World War I broke out in 1914, countries needed to print money to finance the war. Massive amounts of money. But they couldn't print more than their gold reserves allowed without breaking the gold standard. So one by one, they abandoned it. Britain, France, Germany. The United States technically stayed on gold, but restricted conversion. You couldn't actually exchange your dollars for gold anymore. After the war, countries tried to return to the gold standard. Britain did in 1925, but at the wrong exchange rate. They pegged the pound too high, making British exports expensive. It crippled their economy. Then came the Great Depression. When banks failed and people panicked, they wanted gold. But there wasn't enough gold to back all the currency in circulation. The gold standard turned a financial crisis into an economic catastrophe. Countries couldn't print money to stimulate their economies because they were constrained by gold reserves. In April 1933, President Franklin Roosevelt took a radical step. He issued Executive Order 6102. It ordered Americans to turn in their gold coins, gold bullion, and gold certificates to the government. The penalty for refusal? 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. That's $200,000 today. Why? Because Roosevelt needed to devalue the dollar to fight deflation. But he couldn't do that while citizens could exchange dollars for gold at the old rate. So he confiscated the gold. Then he raised the price from $20.67 per ounce to $35 per ounce. Instant devaluation. It was one of the most controversial actions in American history. But it worked. The economy began to recover. After World War II, world leaders met at Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, to create a new monetary system. They established the Bretton Woods system. The US dollar would be convertible to gold at $35 per ounce. Other currencies would be pegged to the dollar. The dollar became the world's reserve currency. This system required the United States to hold enough gold to back all the dollars in circulation globally, and for 2 decades, it worked. But by the 1960s, problems emerged. The Vietnam War and Great Society programs meant the U.S. was printing more dollars than it had gold to back them. Other countries, especially France, started demanding gold for their dollars. Charles de Gaulle didn't trust American economic policy. He wanted France's reserves in gold, not paper. The U.S. gold reserves at Fort Knox began to drain. In 1950, the United States held 20,300 tons of gold. By 1970, it was down to 9,800 tons, half gone. Something had to give. On August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon appeared on television. He announced that the United States would no longer convert dollars to gold. The Bretton Woods system was dead. The gold standard was over. This was called the Nixon shock. For the first time in history, the world's currencies were backed by nothing except trust in the governments that issued them. Fiat currency. Money by decree. Economists predicted chaos. How could money have value if it wasn't backed by gold? But here's what happened. Nothing. The system worked. Inflation rose for a while in the 1970s, but currencies stabilized. International trade continued. The world moved on. And yet, gold didn't disappear. Central banks still hold gold reserves. The United States holds 8,133 tons. Germany holds 3,362 tons. The IMF holds 2,814 tons. Why? If gold isn't money anymore, why do governments hoard it? Because gold is still the ultimate hedge. When currencies fail, when governments collapse, when inflation spirals out of control, gold holds value. It's a form of insurance, a store of value that survived every empire that's ever existed. In 1980, gold reached its inflation-adjusted peak, $850 per ounce. That's over $3,000 today. Then it crashed. By 1999, it had fallen to $252. Analysts declared gold obsolete, a barbarous relic, as economist John Maynard Keynes had called it. Why hold gold when you could hold stocks or bonds? Then came 2008, the financial crisis. Lehman Brothers collapsed. Banks failed. Governments printed trillions to prevent economic collapse. And gold? Gold went from $800 in 2008 to $1,900 in 2011. Today, gold sits around $2,000 per ounce. Central banks are buying more gold than they have in decades. China has been accumulating gold reserves. Russia has been accumulating gold reserves. Countries want an alternative to the dollar. But gold's modern value isn't just about money anymore. Gold is essential to modern technology. Your smartphone has about 50 milligrams of gold in it. Gold is the best conductor after silver and copper, and unlike those metals, it doesn't corrode. Every computer chip uses gold wire bonding. Every satellite has gold-plated components to reflect radiation and conduct electricity in space. NASA's James Webb Space Telescope has mirrors coated in a layer of gold atoms just 100 nanometers thick. Why gold? Because gold reflects infrared light better than any other metal. The telescope's ability to see the oldest galaxies in the universe depends on a gold coating thinner than a human hair. Gold is used in medicine, for treating arthritis, for certain cancer therapies. Gold nanoparticles can target tumor cells while leaving healthy cells alone. We mine over 3,000 tons of gold per year now. China is the largest producer, followed by Australia and Russia. The technology has advanced far beyond James Marshall panning in a California stream. Modern mines use cyanide leaching to extract gold from ore at concentrations as low as 1 gram per ton of rock. And yet, for all our technological advancement, the total amount of gold ever mined in human history would fit in a cube just 23 meters on each side. That's about the size of an Olympic swimming pool. Every gold coin, every piece of jewelry, every gold bar in Fort Knox, every circuit board, every dental filling, all of it would fit in one cube. This scarcity, combined with gold's chemical properties, is why it retains value. You can't create more of it. You can't synthesize it economically. The only new gold comes from mining. And mining gets harder every year as the easily accessible deposits are exhausted. So, what do we learn from gold's story? First, value is psychological as much as physical. Gold is valuable because humans collectively decided it's valuable. Its chemical properties made it a good candidate, but plenty of other rare materials exist. We chose gold. And that choice, made thousands of years ago, still shapes our economy today. Second, scarcity creates power. Those who controlled gold controlled trade. The Spanish Empire was built on gold stolen from the Americas. The Bank of England's power came from its gold reserves. Even today, countries with large gold reserves have more economic stability. Third, no system lasts forever. The gold standard seemed permanent. It had existed in some form for thousands of years. And yet, in 1971, it ended. The world adapted. Systems that seem eternal are just human constructs. They can change. Fourth, trust is the ultimate currency. Since 1971, money has been backed not by gold, but by trust in governments. That trust can be fragile. When it breaks, people return to gold. Because gold doesn't require trust. It just is. Gold's hold on human psychology is extraordinary. We've been obsessed with it for 6,000 years. We've crossed oceans for it, killed for it, built temples to it, backed our currencies with it. And even now, when it's no longer officially money, we can't let it go. Central banks hold it. Investors buy it during crises. Jewelers craft it into symbols of commitment and love. Engineers use it in our most advanced technology. The metal that's too soft to build with, too heavy to be practical, and serves almost no biological purpose, has shaped human civilization more than perhaps any other material. Why? Because gold represents something deeper than utility. It represents permanence in an impermanent world. It represents wealth that survives governments, currencies, and empires. It represents the human desire to hold something eternal. Gold is still here, in your electronics, in central bank vaults, in wedding rings, and it will still be here long after we're gone. Because gold, unlike paper currency, unlike digital assets, unlike any human institution, is truly immortal. The question isn't whether gold has value. History has answered that conclusively. The question is what that tells us about ourselves, about what we value, about what we trust, about what we're willing to fight for. Gold doesn't rule nations anymore. Not officially. But it still rules hearts. And perhaps it always will. Anyway, that's it from me. Feel free to discuss your thoughts below. You've been watching Threads of Civilization. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.